Welcome to Beyond Transcendence with Andrew. I'm your host, Andrew Wilson. On today's show, I have Madhu Pora Dasa. Madhu, a former monk turned holistic health and business lifestyle coach, has guided over 250 health and wellness professionals, coaches, and influencers toward building thriving 6 to 7 figure online businesses through his signature monk mindset method and conscious closure system. With a deep foundation in the bhakti yoga tradition, Madhu spent half a decade immersing himself in a Mosaic life, studying the Vedic arts and sciences under esteemed teachers while traveling widely. Madhu also hosts the Conscious podcast, where he shares insights to help you master your mind, grow your wealth, and alleviate your health. Outside his coaching and podcast work, Madhu is a passionate musician, often found on international stages sharing his music with audience worldwide. Please welcome Madhu. Welcome to the show, Madhu.
So happy to be here with you, Andrew, and talk about stuff that will likely be, let's call it fascinating, to say the least.
So tell me about your spiritual journey. What brought you to spirituality?
Yeah, the main thing is that I asked too many questions as a young man. I asked too many questions and I didn't have enough satisfying answers. There was a way in which I was always curious about what even is a human, and what am I, and who are you to me, and does this exist? And if we do, what is? And in this way, there's just a almost onslaught of questioning from a young age, where even people I love and trust would be like, I don't know, or don't ask so many questions, or, oh, man, it doesn't really matter what the answer is. And it was always dissatisfying. And so when I was a teenager, I studied philosophy and theology. And even there was a way in which I was like, it still doesn't answer some questions, but what about this? What about that? And there's a way in which the more you ask, the more questions you get. And then it wasn't really until I started studying ancient Vedic texts, or the texts from India, that for those unfamiliar that are listening, the oldest written literatures we currently have in the world are called the Vedas. They're written in what's now modern day India. And they're the oldest written literatures that we currently know of. There's obviously hieroglyphs and things that predate it, but in terms of literature with recursive language and philosophical concepts, it's the oldest. And I started consuming some of that and I went, okay, I know nothing. And that's what, let's just say, impelled me in the direction of really starting to study spirituality.
Okay. I seen that you became a monk. What brought that on? What was your journey for that?
Yeah. So again, studying different traditions, there was a way in which I was like, okay, there seems to be more similarities than differences in a lot of these spiritual practices that at least I was exploring at this point. And I really found one tradition, which is called bhakti yoga. And it's, again, it's what's taught from these ancient yoga literatures, or Vedas, the Vedic texts. And it ultimately means how to connect with one's real self and divinity through a process of love. And it's literally a practical aspect of, well, let's just say a step-by-step protocol, really, of how one can understand themselves, how they can understand nature around them, and then how they can understand divinity, and in terms strengthen the relationships between these three. And so once I studied that, I was like, all right, there's something in this. And then I started hanging out with people who practice this in ashrams, or let's say traditional temples. And after meeting them, I was like, there's something far out about these people. There's something special. You could tell they're fine. They're not in anxiety like I am. They're not, or whatever the case might be. They're in a different space. And I spent too much time with them. And I was like, this sounds way better than what I'm doing. At that point, I was 16. I just graduated high school. I was going to college, and I was like, I don't want to do this whole college thing. You guys like college? No problem. Have fun. But it wasn't for me. And that's when when I was 17, I was like, all right, I want to do something with my life. And on my 18th birthday, I shaved my head and moved to India and started to study the process of bhakti yoga and live in a monastery there.
And what was it like living in the monastery?
We would wake up quite early, somewhere between, say, 3:30 and 4 a.m., do some meditation all together. Then we would have, say, about 2 hours of private meditation. From there, we would have some education. So we'd be studying, depending on what we're studying and different places in the world, different times of the year, studying different things. But then you'd go right on into learning the ancient practices. And then, breakfast. Then you go on with the day, and everyone's engaged according to their nature. So the person who loves to cook, they cook for, say, everyone who lives there. Or also we have big events where we cook for lots of people, or give in charity and volunteering, etc. Some people like myself, I like to teach. As you guys will, for better or worse, hear, I have no shortage of things to say. And so I would like to go to universities and teach meditation. And so everyone was engaged according to their nature for the day. And then you come back in the evening, do one last little meditation together, eat some dinner, and by that time you're ready to sleep for as long as possible and repeat the next day.
Sounds very relaxing. So when you were in meditation, what thoughts came to your mind? What connection with source did you have?
Yeah, so there's so many different types of meditation out there. The primary one that's taught in this ancient yoga perspective or Vedic. And when I say yoga too, for those listening, not necessarily just the physical yoga, which is great. I love it. But the traditional term yoga literally means to link. So they're practices that relink us to, again, our real self, as well as divinity, and how we are intrinsically connected, and how to reawaken that, let's say, yoga, or that linking, that union. There's many processes taught, but the main one that's taught is what we might say is spending quality time with divinity. And that means chanting, say, mantras that evoke divine presence. That means reading literatures that help us, again, understand ourselves beyond our conditioning. That means engaging physically in service that's beyond what we'd otherwise, just what the mind tells us what to do. And in this way, we're always trying to supersede conditioning. So when it comes to what happens with the mind, obviously every mind is different. Our thoughts come up, and instead of trying to, let's say, disregard them or get rid of them, sometimes people think we have to empty our mind. It's not possible. Good luck. The reason people say, oh, I'm trying to meditate, doesn't work, is because they've just done the wrong meditation. Let's try to clear the mind. The mind's never cleared. We want to increase the quality of what we're focusing the mind on. So the whole process that we're taught there is, when we're spending time specifically for individual meditation, is when the mind wanders, you bring it back. When the mind wanders, you bring it back to a focal point. Because negation gets us nowhere. Trying to think of nothing is a thought. It's something. Trying to meditate to become desireless, well, it's a desire. There's so many meditations that can only get you so far. So instead of trying to negate the mind, let's engage the mind in something worth paying attention to. Because that's the way in which we always try to bring the mind back to the focal point of the meditation.
And that's what brought on your coaching? Your business for coaching?
Eventually, yeah. So after graduating the monastery, after 5 years, about 99% of us monks, we're student monks, and we go to graduate to mean become normal people. I mean, I don't think anything about me is normal, but we start to integrate what we learned. There's what we jokingly call the 1%ers, or the go for gold. So there's a small percentage of human that when we become a monk, what to speak of, that want to take a lifelong vow of celibacy, and that's a whole other ballgame. But for me, after 5 years, my teachers were like, okay, I think you feel good. And I was like, I feel good. So after integrating, coaching was just a natural way to keep doing what I was doing as a monk, which was really just sharing and facilitating holistic experiences. And the English word for that is kind of coaching. And so it was just a natural transition to coaching, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And you decided to join a punk band? I seen in your profile you're a part of a punk band?
Yeah. So after about a year after graduating, I was approached by a friend who is a very famous international band, who said, hey, I've been a musician since I was a young man, and I've always enjoyed it, and a lot of musical meditation that I would do even as a monk and since. And he said, hey, would you want to participate in this band and tour with us internationally? I said, let me think about it. No, I said, obviously, absolutely. And yeah, last many years now, get to share. It's interestingly enough, the other band members are practitioners of bhakti yoga, or the spiritual practices from the East. And the lyrics are all quite spiritual. And if you listen, it's like, it's all talking about like how to increase empathy and how to, anyway, go through all the examples. But, and they do it with a bunch of punk music.
That's awesome. So what are some of the lessons you learned on your spiritual journey?
Service is everything. Oftentimes we think happiness comes the more I consume, the more I learn, the more I acquire, the more I have, then I'll be happy. Once I then I'll be happy. But happiness really comes from service. And to the extent that I can really contribute and give back to all the amazing gifts that my teachers have given to me, that's really where happiness comes, in contribution and not consumption. That's the main thing. And any contentment or happiness I feel in my life, it comes from, not to be cliche, but from my amazing teachers. They've provided me an opportunity to understand what's available beyond just going through the minutia of life, the day-to-day, and just wearing down our life quality, but rather take whatever days, moments, years we have on this planet and do something that will positively impact others' lives. Not just so I could say I did, but with the deep satisfaction of, somebody gifted me this, let me keep sharing this gift with others. But, there's many others, but that's the foundation of everything, and specifically how anyone can really improve their contentment in life.
So with people struggling nowadays, what can you offer them as for guidance or some sort of wisdom?
Well, let's say, expanding on the service principle, there's a way in which every single human, listening to this or not, has a unique gift. Whether you accept that reality or not, every single person has a unique psychophysical nature with unique characteristics and qualities that are indicative of them being unique and unlike any other human in this universe, or maybe any other universe, that is. The way in which we can really serve and give back is to first and foremost figure out, what am I here to do in this world? Like, what are my unique gifts? If I take the things I enjoy doing that I'm also good at, once I figure that out, how can I really give that back to others? And the first step is that acknowledgement. It's like, sit down. I always tell people, sit down, grab a pen and paper and shut up, lock the door, tell everyone, leave me be for 30 minutes or however long it's going to take. Turn anything with the on-off switch off, to throw your phone out of the room, whatever you got to do, and just sit down and say, like, what do I love to do and that I'm decent at? And once we have 1, 2, 3, maybe it's many things that fall in that category, the next question is, how do I take this gift and use it to improve the quality of life of someone else? And the answers will come if we just listen. If you are asking yourselves these questions and the answers don't come, it means just, I say this just but you got to sit down and shut up. Don't distract yourself. The answers will come. It's just a matter of sitting there and not distracting ourselves from allowing these answers to come. And once we know what are some ways to give back, what are some ways to contribute with my nature, then we start practicing it. Whether that's 5 minutes a day or 15 or an hour or 5 hours, doesn't really matter. Just start somewhere and commit to doing some form of contribution, because not only will you become happier, but there's a way in which, through the impression of increase, by seeing someone else do something that's special and empowering, we are inspired to do something special and empowering. And so it will not only help you, but it'll help others around you, and then it'll also inspire others around you to also get in touch with their gifts and use that to actually contribute towards improving others' qualities of life as well.
What about people like myself who have a hard time paying attention to things? They diagnosed us with attention deficit disorder. Yeah. So my mind's always going. It never stops. So for myself, what would work?
Yeah. So I'll first say it's a gift. Like, whenever, as somebody who's also spent my whole life being diagnosed with, first it was ADD and then it was ADHD. And anyway, so many names they want to slap on me. And even as a young man taking medications for this, different medications for ADHD, and practically amphetamines that they gave me. I'm not anti-modern medicine, by the way. Big fan, especially in various regards. But I definitely don't agree that was the best approach for me, because I didn't try to do it organically or naturally. It took me some years to figure out how to actually do it sustainably, because the extent that we do medications, we become reliant on them. And medications are helpful as like a cast is helpful to heal and not wound ourselves further. But there's a way in which, if we become hyper dependent on it without actually fixing the root cause, we become dependent, and therefore we don't have full control over the mind. So what I'll first say is that it's quite a gift to have an overactive mind, because the opposite's kind of scary, an underactive mind. It's actually quite a concern. So for many those that are listening that also are like two of us that have a quote unquote overactive mind, first off, congratulations. It's a great gift. Then how do we start to make the mind work for us instead of against us? Because it's not that an overactive mind is good or bad. It's just, how do I make it focus? Number one must be understanding the mind is like a muscle, like any other muscle, where it can be trained. And just like when I first started working out and I try to do a bicep curl, it's like, this sucks. I hate this. I don't want to do this. I never want to pick this back up ever again, whatever the case might be. But, after a month of twice a week lifting something and curling it, it's like, oh, okay, this isn't that bad. It's kind of actually makes me feel good. Ooh, I'm also getting bigger. Ooh, I feel pretty good after I do this. And then slowly but surely the taste comes. There's an initial sacrifice for extending yourself in the beginning, make yourself uncomfortable for the long-term growth. In the same way, the muscle of the mind can be trained. And the way that we do that is by practicing when the mind wanders, bring it back to the object of focus. This is again where I think meditation becomes quite misconstrued, and that is the empty the mind. It's like, good freaking luck, empty the mind, as if. The focus here is, how do I engage the mind onto one area of attention, like one little thing, whether that's external from you put something in front of you, you stare at that and you don't look away. Like, that's one way to control the mind, because the eyes are the only part of the brain outside of the skull. So training the eyes is a very effective way to actually physiologically train the brain. So, looking at something, or whether that means closing the shades, the eye shades, aka eyelids, and turning off the eyes, the vision, for the sake of distractions. There's ways in which whatever we're focusing our attention on, we bring it back. So whether it's a mantra and we chant a mantra, Om, and keep the focus coming back to the sound vibration, or whether, fill in the blank, whatever we want to bring our attention to, externally or internally. Just in the same way as picking up the weights, flexing, pick up the weight, flex, pick up the weight, flex. And that's how we strengthen it. When the mind wanders, we bring it back. When the mind wanders, we bring it back. When the mind wanders, we bring it back. And then not only is it miserable in the beginning, but it also can be exhausted because it's a new habit. But in the same way as, just like, it hurts the bicep when you first start doing some curls, but eventually it starts to feel really good. It feels very fortifying. You feel strong. You literally benefited biologically just by doing it. The same way the mind starts to work with you. And then you notice the mind doesn't wander nearly as much as it did. And even if it does, it's more efficiently brought back. So all that in one sentence is, every day we want to spend time focusing our attention in one area, and whenever the mind diverts, we bring it right back. And whenever the mind diverts, we bring it right back. And this is what's taught in ancient yoga literatures like the Bhagavad Gita, which in the 6th chapter, the chapter of meditation, it says that is meditation. Meditation exclusively, when the mind wanders, you bring it right back. And that's how we become better at focus and better at controlling the mind in general, so it doesn't control us.
That's neat. That's some very informative information for myself and our audience. What message do you have for the audience that are listening today?
There's always options. There's a way in which the mind always wants to say, yeah, but maybe things work well for others, but not me. I'm helpless. I'm hopeless. I'm fill in the gap. There's so many ways the mind can sneak in and disempower us. My request to you all listening, which I'm so grateful I have teachers that have shared this with me, is that not only is there always hope, but there's always options. And if there's options, that means there's choices to be made. If there's choices to be made, that means there's choices within your control that you could make today to completely change the trajectory of your life. And you're only ever one decision away from completely changing the trajectory of your life. Just sometimes it's a tiny decision, tiny choice, tiny habit, tiny belief shift that can completely affect the outcome of your life. So if you ever feel this, I'm not even going to say if, when you feel disempowered, when you feel overwhelmed, when you feel anxious, when you feel those negative thoughts creeping in, those self-doubts, my one request is that you ask yourself the question, what is one decision I could make that will move me one step in the right direction? And even if that feels too much, like, what's one easy step I can make to move me in the right direction? And always just boil it down to one step at a time, and just take that one step. And once you're there, if you're still a little funk, ask yourself the question again, what's one step I can make? If I got to clean my room, don't think about cleaning the room. Just like, I'm just going to pick up that one thing. Just one step at a time. In this 1970s, there was this guy, I believe it's in Ripley's, believe it or not. He ate a punch buggy. What is it? Volkswagen Bug. There's a car. What he did is he literally chopped every little piece of the car into tiny pieces, ate every little screw, chopped every metal into edible pieces. And I don't even want to know what the other side looked like when it came out, but he did it. He ate a whole punch buggy. Don't try this at home, friends. And it's insane. Don't do that. But the concept is there of how do you eat a car? One bite at a time. Don't think about the whole car. Just Think about like one screw at a time. And just give it one little bite at a time. So wherever you're at, when you feel disempowered, just ask yourself, what's one step in the right direction that I could make today?
Thank you, Madhu. That was a wonderful analogy of eating a car. I loved it. That was great. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation, and I'm so grateful to have you on my show, and I wish you nothing but success on your journey.
Thank you. And I'll just appreciate you briefly by saying it's such a beautiful sacrifice to take so much time to create a podcast like this and keep it going. And on behalf of myself and all your listeners, I know they won't mind me speaking for them, is thank you so much for taking the energy, time, resources, mental space to allow something beautiful like this to keep going so that we can all benefit from the concepts that you and your guests share. So thank you, Andrew.
Thank you very much. Much love to you, Madhu, and take care.
Back at you, brother.
And that's our show for today. Thank you for joining us on this enlightening journey with Madhu. His story is a beautiful reminder that our path to healing and spiritual growth is a personal one, but we're never alone in it. Through his experience in the Bhagavad Gita yoga, meditation, and service, we can all find ways to bring more peace and empowerment into our lives. As we continue to grow together, I invite you to reflect on the small, actionable steps Madhu shared and incorporate them into your daily life. Remember, every step towards healing matters. If you're ready to take your healing journey to the next level, come and join my community on School, Healing Through the Soul. Let's continue supporting one another in embracing our own power, finding peace, and living the most authentic lives. I look forward to seeing you there and hearing how these practices are transforming your life. Take that first step because healing starts with you. Once again, I leave my email btwa2024@gmail.com. Also, if you kindly leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or even check out the YouTube channel, I would greatly appreciate it. I hope everyone has a wonderful evening. Much love to all you. Bye.